Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's the Full 40 with Chris, Rob, and Willie, part of the Nova Insider Network. It is 8:50 p.m. on Sunday, December 4th, coming to you after a big win. Villanova beats the Oklahoma Sooners. Tell me if you've heard that before. But we get the first big win of the season.
First win of any significance, like
the first win,
big win.
The first win, it feels like this season.
Yeah,
for being
very
honest.
true. Yeah, usually the other wins usually would have been like, oh yeah, it was a footnote, it's just a warm up.
And I'd argue that Villanova got 2 wins yesterday because we finally got the debut of Cam Whitmore, and it was as advertised in a lot of ways. So we have a lot to dive into. We'll recap a little bit about the Oklahoma game. And then we're going to keep this going on the podcast in terms of talking about, like, okay, how does Villanova work itself back into a tournament team? Obviously, still as we sit here right now in a pretty deep hole that we need to dig out of, but we'll get to that a little bit later. We'll preview the Penn and BC games coming up. And finally, we'll also look around the Big East Conference because things are starting to take shape and some conference games are going to start in the next week or so.
Wild. So that's pretty crazy to think about.
It's outrageous. So let's talk Oklahoma. Beginning of the game looked a little bit like the beginning of every other game that we played this season. It was immediate, like 3-pointers raining on us. We're not getting out, closing out on shooters. It's 20-9. We surrender a big lead. And all of a sudden you're just sitting there like, oh my goodness, is this really going to happen again? Is this really us?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was exactly at that moment in the game, but Cam Whitmore came in for the first time, like kind of around that time frame. And I think we got to start with Cam, right? Like, I think we got to start there, right? Like he was rusty. Let's just be clear on that. Like, as you would expect somebody who really hasn't played too much basketball in 6, 7, 8 weeks due to injury. But when he did make some plays, man, you could see the talent, the athleticism, whatever. And I'm going to go a hot take right now. I cannot recall in my fandom an athlete that has that, like, that just oozes that talent like Cam Whitmore. I cannot, even just one game, I'm ready to make that claim.
At Villanova.
In my fandom, which is going back 20 years.
The aggression, like, just from minute 1 coming on the floor was awesome. Like, he just came in with that attacking mindset and the attitude of, I'm better than everybody else on the court, and Oklahoma, like, I'm going to take this ball to the hoop. Good luck trying to stop me. And that absolutely killer mindset is something that I feel like this team has been lacking. And I think you could feel the difference when he was on the court. And I couldn't agree more. Just the combination of physicality, athleticism, aggression. I can't think of anybody else, especially as a freshman, coming into Villanova and just saying, like, nah, I got this. And, like, it clearly elevated the team. It was exciting to watch. It was my first real excitement for this season. I was like, oh shit, like, all right, like, if this is rusty Cam Whitmore, like, let's see him once the rust shakes off, because I'm pretty fucking excited. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he was, absolutely phenomenal. Going to kind of the energy that he brought to the team and everything like that. Alan Ray had a really good thing on Twitter where he kind of called out when Kyle Lowry joined the team. in like what, 05, 06, whatever they were.
It was
whatever year that
0405. It was the
0405. When it was 0405, the difference that had just on the floor in their confidence, the difference of who Kyle was, that's what they're getting with Cam. And it's been one game, but he's that guy. In terms of just everything you see on the court, I could dive in and really get into what he was doing and everything like that. But the footwork, the size, the skill, and what I want to call out was his defensive. Like, I'm going to say right now, he made defensive plays. I don't know if intensity is the word yet, because we haven't seen full. He played 20 minutes, which was funny because we were saying minutes restriction. And he's just like continuously on the floor for like the middle chunk of the game. So it's like, I don't know what minutes we're restricting here, but he basically didn't play the first 10 and didn't play the last 10, but everything else in between was his game. But as we look at it, he made 2 key defensive plays, one on a pick and roll to get a steal that ended up in a Mark Armstrong 3, one basically as we're getting towards crunch time where he blew up the dribble handoff. And just things that both of those plays weren't in a vacuum great plays, but when you saw how he did it, you're like, oh, he moves at a different frequency on the floor, which is going to change a lot of different things for a lot of players. Once he really he's already smooth. I think he's very smooth. Once he really shakes off the rust, I mean, we already know sky's the limit for him. He's a potential top 3 pick for a reason. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. He was definitely pressing a little bit, but I can't blame him. You wanted to get that, especially to get the first bucket. You could see he just wanted to get it, and once it happened, it was good. And we're gonna see a little bit of fun with him in the next couple of games, hopefully.
I'm totally good with him pressing. Like I'm literally all for it. We've been calling for people to take over that kind of playmaker role, to bring something different to the offense. Hampton did it. And Willie, to your point, he had 3 steals in 20 minutes. He thinks differently. He operates at a different level. He's willing to take those chances because he knows he can do something and get there faster than everybody else. And it was absolutely the case. I've been like holding back since we started talking about him, because I didn't know if I wanted to get there already, but like the step back 3, like should we talk about that already?
I mean, I have a different play.
Oh my God. Like, it's just, I have no words. Like, he did that. And I was just like, oh shit. Are we allowed to do that? Like, do we have players that do that? I was like, holy fuck. Like, that was so dirty. There was no reason you should have taken that shot. And you just buried it.
Rachel's definitely going to be canning that little monologue by Rob just now.
Oh my God, of course.
And putting eggplant emojis on it. But
Rob, when you were talking to about Cam Whitmore, I thought you were gonna say like you were like, I'm fine with him pressing, and I was like, oh, here it comes. Like, I could tell that you were like, I can't believe you don't have a Cam Whitmore jersey already. But
I know, I should. It's a big miss. It is clearly a gap in my wardrobe. It's funny. I was actually talking to Nicole about this before the show, and she's like, what jersey you're gonna wear tonight? I was like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'll pull out a Colin one. And she's like, I feel like you need something to like summon that Cam energy. So I ended up going with the Josh Hart one, because I really don't have any other like 2-3 like guard wing guys. So I was like, all right, we'll go Josh in honor of Cam. But anyway, big side track here. Let's get back on the Cam energy.
The play for me, so the step back 3 was awesome. Yeah. The play for me that I'm actually going to submit as a Shaq Fit Man Play of the Week candidate. I'm not saying it is my pick. I have a couple of candidates that I was thinking through, but
candidates,
Jesus Christ,
please no, don't no.
The candidate for me was the crossover dribble, go to his left layup, and it was a strong layup. It wasn't a dunk. It wasn't a dunk, but the way he got off the ground when he went to that layup, his head was like equal with the backboard. Like, it was his layup there was no chance that they were ever going to get blocked by anybody, right? Like, it was just, he was so far above everybody else that he looked like it kind of came across like he was laying the ball up down. Like, he was so up there. I just, that play to me was like, that was the eye-popping play for me. I was like, oh, it's like that. Yeah. Okay. Right. Like, that was the moment where I said, I get now the difference between like a 5-star, like a Omari, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Moof, Jalen Brunson type guy, and this type of 5-star.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, I mean, he hadn't played basketball in 7 weeks. He like only like apparently he'd been practicing like lightly, and to come in and be as poised as he was, there's just there's a lot of things to enjoy. I'm excited to get to continue to watch him play basketball. Just as a basketball fan, I think it's a really good time. And the play, I mean, if we're talking about plays, the play that sticks out to me was the defensive play, the play made at the defensive end, where he got it was when we were down, I think we were down 20-12, 20-14. There was a pick and roll, Tanner Groves dove, and Cam was like a step behind him, and on the pass burst, got the steal, and then ran down court, ran underneath the hoop, threw it to, I think, Arch, who swung it to Armstrong, who hit a 3. And I've been rewatching that highlight, and I've been like, is this being doctored? Because his speed from half court to the baseline, I was like, that can't be, like, he's not actually moving that quickly, is he? He apparently is. So it's a lot of really exciting things to see. I'm really excited how this will help everyone else on the team. I think we're going to see Caleb with a big lift off his shoulders.
Oh, totally.
And I think Caleb's still going to be the go-to guy. I don't think that's changing anywhere in the way that, like, it's still going to feel like it's going to be running through Caleb a little bit and Eric, but it's going to make their life so much easier. And the thing I wanted to shout out was, I thought it was due to injury, but we made a lineup change. Maybe not the one we were thinking about.
Yeah.
But we made a lineup change.
Yep.
Where it was Mark Armstrong and instead of Chris Arch, or March Armstrong and Arch instead of Jordan Longino. And at first I thought it was, oh, well, Jordan must have a knee thing. That makes sense. Jordan played like 20-ish minutes. So he's probably somewhat okay. Everyone's, nicked up throughout a season, but I mean, that's why Kyle's making a change, which is really good to see. And we tweeted this out, but when Jay was on the pod, or not on the pod, if Jay, you want to come on the pod, please do. But when Jay was courtside with Raf, and he made the comment about, Villanova's playing 2 freshmen, which is rare for them. It was very much like, hey, Jay, that's your fault.
Yeah. That's you who did that. Just to be 100% clear here, right? Like, Jay Wright, it's odd for Villanova. Who could do something like this?
So ridiculous. Wait, okay. So I was watching the game in a bar. So I missed all of, and let's be clear, I was watching it in a bar, and Villanova was like priority number 17 at the bar. So we got one TV out of about 20. So I missed all of the audio there. Any other highlights from Jay? Because that is an absolute gem of pure ridiculousness coming from Jay. I mean, what's the takeaway from Jay on the call?
So they had Jay on for, I would say, the middle of the game. Is that about right? Did he come in after halftime or was he before halftime?
So he pulled the Cam Whitmore.
It was
we got this guy, this big name. Let's put him in for the middle.
Yeah, he played. He was on for the first 10 minutes of the second half.
That's it. That's what I thought. Okay. It kind of like, so what I think CBS was doing was giving him a comfortable moment to be like a second color commentator, right? Like that was kind of his, it was almost like a trial run.
Spring training. Yeah.
Right? And so he was on the broadcast giving secondary color to Raf. And it was very funny though, because I commented on this. If you were an Oklahoma fan, that game had to be like fucking nails on a chalkboard for you, because it was like, the way I'd liken it to was, Rob, you ever watch like it wasn't like watching a football game where you have two guys who are just non-biased.
Yeah.
It was like watching a baseball game where you're watching like the Yankees Yes Network broadcast.
Oh yeah, it's like the Villanova feed of this game.
That's what it was. It was the Villanova feed of this game, just on main CBS, right? Like an Oklahoma fan watching that had to be like, "What the fuck is this fucking absolutely biased shit?" Like it was crazy, and then it was made worse by as we went into halftime. So this is what started it, because as you go into halftime, Oklahoma had the lead, so Porter Moser got the interview at halftime. And the last question that he gets asked going into as he was leaving the floor to go to this locker room was, "What do you think about Villanova's Cam Whitmore?" Like it was so crazy. I was watching that game and I was just like, so he gets asked, Porter Moser gets asked about Cam Whitmore, and then for the next 10 minutes of gameplay, Jay Wright's just on the broadcast talking only about Villanova, like providing very little analysis on Oklahoma, just talking about Villanova.
So good. Oh my God.
Was there any gems? I don't think he said anything that was too crazy, other than literally the second half starts and he said that quote, like, "Oh man, Villanova's."
He said it like seriously, like he wasn't.
Oh no.
Joking?
Oh yeah, he was serious.
It was dead ass. He was literally like, "Wow, so we're coming out of half and Villanova's starting 2 freshmen, which is rare for them." And I was like,
he's like, "I wouldn't do that. No way."
Yeah, I was like, "What?"
Something he did say just during it was, so I was at a bar watching it, but then I rewatched just so I could get the audio specifically for Jay.
This is really taking the extra effort. I did not take that extra effort.
Well, just because I knew Jay was on it, I was like, I wanted to hear what he said. He called out something where I think after one of Caleb's threes, he was like, "Oh, Villanova should be running a little bit like more," which I thought was interesting that Jay called it out on the broadcast that Villanova should probably be running a little bit more. But I just did something that was funny where I kept expecting him to say "we" at a point, and he did a very good job. He didn't say "we."
Okay.
So Jay, kudos to you.
He said
consummate professional.
It was awkward. One of our most loyal friends and listeners, Sarah Barnett, pointed out, she was just like, "I cannot get over Jay referring to us as they, and them." It was very unusual, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's also weird because he's an employee of the school as well. So it's like, I don't know.
He is. Sorry, every time I hear about another job that Jay Wright has, I just can't help being like, this is the least retired guy.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to deal with NIL and recruit. And he was like, "I'm done with college basketball coaching, but I got plenty of juice in the veins for everything else."
So let's talk about a couple other basketball related things. First off, I missed a small bit of it because there was the largest spider I've ever seen in my entire life. This thing was like this big, and I saw it just at the corner of my eye crawling across the carpet, and then I was just like, "All right, I'll probably
right now."
No, it just happened before when I got up.
Why you got
when I got up, I looked at it and it was like, okay, it's just crawling across the carpet. I'm gonna leave it there. I'll grab it after the podcast. And then it made a right turn and was making a beeline to me. And I was like, okay, this has to be addressed immediately. So I missed it if you said it. But one of the points that I wanted to raise about Caleb Daniels was the fact that we've said on this podcast before that Caleb's pressing, and the fact that he doesn't have another like high level guard option or wing option to help him from a coverage standpoint is causing him to press and force things that he doesn't feel natural to do. He's drawing the best defender. And we thought that it was Dustin Moore's return that was going to help him more. Honestly, just anybody, it's one game and he shot really well. So like, I don't want to take too much stock in this, but one game where you had another feature player that Whitmore, when he was on, had to draw the best defender, the most capable defender, literally opened up space for Caleb Daniels. So, and by the way, Oklahoma is a good 3-point defensive team. So that was not like a usual thing to have someone go off like Caleb did. And in the awards thing, there's 2 things I want to point out. Caleb is my alpha dog of the week with 22 points. Like, as much as we want to glow about Cam, like Caleb won this game for the team. Right? Yeah.
Like so good.
And then he also had, I'd say, that 3 ball to put us up. That was up to put us up 4 with 50 seconds left. I'd also deposit as a Shaq Fit Man player of the week candidate. So I thought Caleb was a masterclass effort the other day and on Saturday, and I felt like he was the key. the real key to
Totally.
us winning that game. And then a second point I wanted to raise on Longino. His mid-range game is really good. And I'm not sure. I think we could do more to use that. He reminds me of Arch in 2016 when Arch would up fake on the 3-point line, get the guy to get off his feet, take a few dribbles in and bury the mid-range. He's so good from the mid-range. And then final point about this game, critical point that I feel like I needed to make was that Armstrong started, Whitmore was featured. They both played good minutes. Hausen played some minutes. Brizzy didn't play, but that was the rotation that Neptune went with. But I felt like in addition to all of that, it was so important that the starting lineup that started this season was the one that got the comeback and finished that game and got the win. I thought that was such a confidence boost for that unit in particular, because it was Arch hit a big 3 down the stretch. Everyone made plays down the stretch. Dixon had great defensive plays, and Slater had great defensive plays down the stretch.
Dixon played great defensively, I think.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And so all of that, I wanted to just package that up because I said it all of the anatomy of kind of this team coming back from the depths of hell here. The fact that squad got that win, I think was so critical for this team's confidence going forward.
Yeah, can we talk about that? Because I'll be honest, I didn't get it. Again, I'm watching this in a bar and I'm watching, as we said, the first, if you break this game down into chunks, right? First 10 minutes, we look like shit. We look like every other game this season. We're down 20-9 and Oklahoma's just crushing us. Enter Cam Whitmore. Game obviously swings back totally the other way. Cam plays basically the next 20 minutes, give or take. And we are absolutely in this game. We're a different team. The team is opened up for exactly the reasons you articulated, Bilotti. And then we get down to the final 4 minutes, and this is a tight game. And what you just said happens, right? We basically roll out our quote unquote old starting lineup. I didn't get it. I was shocked. I was sitting there saying, we just did all this good work with Cam, who from the first minute on the floor is clear he's an absolute difference maker on the offensive and defensive end. And we saw the game swing back with him on the floor. And it's pretty clear that this minutes restriction thing was total BS. So in my mind, I was I don't get it. Why should he not be on the floor? So can one of you guys explain to me? Because I honestly don't get it. I'm glad we won, but I don't really get how we got to that decision.
I think it just goes to what we've always done, is going with what we've always known and going with that team. First, I do think Cam was on a literal 20-minutes restriction. The fact that it's 20 on the dot and it wasn't even 23 tells me he very much had a hard minutes restriction. So I think that had something to do with it. But I think honestly, like we said, it goes back to trusting and Kyle going to that's his unit that he trusted. It's interesting because Armstrong got the start, but did not finish out the game. Armstrong also played well. It wasn't like he didn't play well. So I just think it goes back to Kyle and the classic Villanova, trusting your senior and your veteran leaders down the stretch to make the right plays. And they did. Because I had the same feeling. I thought, why weren't Cam and Mark in there? And at the very least, I was why isn't Mark in there? But every single player, as you said, made a play down the stretch that they should have. They took the onus on themselves. They didn't make the mistakes. They didn't get too scared, like we saw in the Oregon game where we got the lead and then all of a sudden we just pooped it away. Yeah. We were on top of our game the entire half. So, or the entire I would say the entire second half, we were basically on top of our game. So that's where I think it comes from. It's just kind of the classic trusting your senior leaders to finish this out situation.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I saw. I think it was a classic trust your guys. I do think there's something to say about I think Arch in particular played well. I think Longino, I think Kyle was trying to feel out how good of a go Longino could give. So I think that might have played a factor in why he was in, because I think Neptune was maybe pleasantly surprised at how good Longino looked and felt after getting banged up. So I think that all played a factor. So I don't know if there was a part of me that was like, it's one of those things where the end justifies the means. That's where I'm kind of at right now. Where you look at it, Neptune made a bet to say, I'm going to go with the guys who my most senior roster here, and I'm going to trust those guys to get it done for me. They got it done for him, so everything's good in the sense of like, okay, now we have that those guys can build some confidence for themselves.
Yeah,
you get the jolt off the bench from the freshmen, and on top of all of that, you have you kind of were able to save a little bit of bullets in the chamber with Whitmore and Armstrong. That's the best I got.
yeah.
It's a fair question, and it's something that we're going to definitely monitor to go forward.
Yeah, and maybe part of it does go back to the fact that, look, you had Cam for 20 minutes, as we've discussed. Having another star on the floor takes pressure, probably takes a little bit of energy requirement down from some of the other guys. So maybe they are able to execute a little bit better come crunch time. They're a little bit less burned out because they haven't had to have been the guy. And it's also put some other pressure on the other team that maybe allows those guys to execute a little bit better than they had, in previous games. So whatever it was, it ended up working. And I'm glad to see that, look, these guys can get it done at the end of the game, because that's something we honestly hadn't seen. We'd seen the guys fight back in several different games, but we hadn't seen them be able to close it out. So it was nice to kind of get that last bow on it, but I'll take it.
Yeah, one thing I want to call out just as an interesting kind of, I'll call it philosophical change. I think at the beginning of the year, we saw a lot of guard back down, specifically Caleb backing down in the post and getting to a bucket. That disappeared basically from Michigan State till Oklahoma. Just was gone, which I don't know. I don't really have an opinion either way, if that's something that should be a consistent part of our diet or whatever it looks. It definitely makes us play slower, but Caleb's really efficient at it. So whatever. But I just thought it was interesting that we saw that come back and Caleb had another very strong game. And I know some teams have schemed to kind of take it away from them, but we really went back into the post. I just looked it up. We took 17 threes. We did not shoot very many threes at all that game. And I know Oklahoma has a really good 3-point defense, but I thought it was interesting that we took what they gave us, but we really didn't force anything. And it was just get to the basket, and get to the basket.
Yeah. Should we talk about Caleb for a quick minute? Because I know Bilotti alluded to it, but just an absolutely phenomenal game. 8 of 10, 22 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, only 2 fouls, like in 37 minutes. He basically played the whole game too. Just you can't ask for any better efficiency than that. And I think it definitely shows what having another guy on the floor like Cam allows this team to do, and allows somebody like Caleb to. We've said it time and time again. We said from the start of the season that, Caleb shouldn't necessarily have to be the guy, but when given the opportunity to take a little bit of that pressure off, he was able to deliver. And wow, just absolutely killer performance in a game that we so needed it.
Couldn't agree more. All right. So why don't we dive a little bit into what's to come, and kind of like, we talked about this on the last podcast. We said, what's the anatomy of this team making a surge look like? How does this look like? And I think universally we said, we got to get Cam Whitmore back. And there was an element of like, we'll see what happens in the Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
Well, we got Cam Whitmore back. He looks to be at least as advertised in terms of athleticism and talent. He is rusty, so it's going to take a little bit of time. The good news is he's got 3 good games right now to shake off that rust coming up. But what does this look like? Because we're now 3-5. We picked up a win over Ken Palm number 30. Well, now it's 32, which, by the way, was the highest Ken Palm rated team that we've played all season long. So we got our highest, we got our quote unquote best win of the season versus all the teams that we've played. I mean, Michigan State, Iowa State, and Oregon are all right there. But like, point being that we got a trademark victory out of conference. And now you say, okay, 3-5, like, where do we go from here? What does that look like? I think we just got to stay with, like, what does it look like for us to get back into the tournament conversation here? I think number one, the next three are like, gotta have them, must wins. You cannot, it's like more like it's less a must win and like a must not lose. Like the next three games provide three bad loss opportunities, provide opportunities to get this team right and moving together and feeling good about ourselves. But like, just pointing this out, Penn is Ken Palm number 174. We'll do a little bit of a bigger breakdown later. Boston College is Ken Palm number 133. Penn's at home. BC's at a neutral, which should be kind of a home game because it's in Newark. And Boston College doesn't have basketball fans. And
Definitely.
and then
do they have fans of any type? I mean,
we could do a whole podcast. We could do a
like,
whole podcast on the Rude Nation of Boston College athletics, other than like hockey. But but then St. Joseph's is Ken Palm number 240, although that game's at Hagen. So these games are like must not lose games, as I'll classify them, like just three games where you got to run this record to 6-5. So I think it starts there, and then you get into Big East play after that. But I do feel like from 6-5, there is like a world in which, okay, this team has a path from an at-large perspective to get it done. It's going to look to me like you got to get St. John's at home, and you got to get Marquette at home, both of which those teams look like they could be bubble-ish in different fashion, right? Like Marquette has a high-level win. They absolutely blew the freaking doors off of Baylor earlier this week, but they don't have as many wins in total. St. John's has a lot of wins, not against great competition, and lost today versus Iowa State, which seems to be a common thread. But that is kind of like that's how I think this looks like. And then you got UConn sandwiched in between the St. John's and Marquette game. And guys like UConn's really good. UConn's like really, really good. And we could go into a bigger Big East breakdown, but like, we got to talk like getting to New Year's with going 5-1 in our next 6 is I think is like mission critical to this team having a chance to be kind of back in the conversation.
Yeah, I think the way I would describe it is the surge starts now. If we're going to be a tournament team, this surge has to start. Well, it started with Oklahoma, and it has to continue with Penn, BC, St. Joe's. I think St. John's is probably also lumped into that as like a must, like get on the Big East get on Big East start Big East with a win. I think what I feel good about is, and we were kind of talking about this pre-show, prior to the Oklahoma game, you could just tell we were tense. I mentioned it on the last show, the Oregon game, we got the lead, Brendan Hausen hit the 3, and then we fell apart. Iowa State, we tied it up to get to overtime. We fell apart. Michigan State, we fought back, didn't really have a great last play. I wouldn't say we fell apart at the end of the game, but we just could not get it done. Temple, we did not get it done. I think our players were tight. They were not worried, but they wanted to prove to themselves more than anything, realistically, that they can get that done, that they're able to execute late game. They did that. They executed late game. They stopped Oklahoma. There were great defensive plays. Honestly, the weirdest part of that game, the Oklahoma game, is we missed 3 free throws, which was normal. We shot a normal percentage, but just like missed 3 clutch free throws. But all that to say, we are in a position where that pressure is a little bit off their back, and they should be in a spot to where they can start rolling. And if we're going to be a tournament team, it has to happen now. I think that magic number, and I'm probably going to keep this all season, is 12. 12 Big East. If we get to 6-5 and we win our next 3 games before the St. John's games, 12 Big East wins to be 12-8 on the year. going into Madison Square Garden for the tournament. So that puts us at 18 wins going into the tournament. If we can get to, I'll call it as a whole, 19 wins on the year, obviously meaning with some of those being like quality wins, we can't just beat up on the worst teams in the Big East and then lose to every other single one. But if we can get to 19 wins, somehow evenly split between good and bad losses, I think that should be enough, especially with a healthy Justin Moore, to be an at-large bid. And at-large meaning like a 9, 10, 11 seed, not anything.
You could be looking at us in the first four, but in.
Yep.
Um,
I don't know. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm going to push back a little bit on this, like I did last week too. Yeah, that Willie, I agree with your math. Like if we get to 19 wins and like hell, if we pick up a 20th win in the tournament, I think the committee, like, call it what it is. Like they say they don't do this, but like Villanova's a nice brand. Like you get a little bit of a benefit from that. Like I think that's going to go a long way. And yeah, I think we probably get an at-large bid. Getting those wins isn't easy.
No.
Like we just beat Oklahoma. We didn't stomp Oklahoma. We beat Oklahoma. We picked up that win. It was tough. I'm not ready to say like we just spent, the past 2 weeks talking about all of the faults that this team has. And Cam definitely helps a lot of those faults. And like, let's not, obviously, like I was pretty giddy about Cam. I'm still pretty giddy about Cam. Let's call it what it is. Like I'm not going to hide that. But like this team, it still has a lot of fucking work to do.
Ton.
So like I'm not jumping into like, oh, we're going to make the tournament. Like, do I feel better having Cam on the floor? Absolutely. Do I think we're going to make it? If I'm a betting man right now, I'm going to say no.
So here's my pushback to that. How many points in a game would you say Cam's worth? Just ballpark right now with what you've seen for one game.
I think Cam will average over the rest of the year. I think Cam will average 12 points a game.
Okay, so if we think about it, like I guess what I'm thinking about, it's not just like raw points, but like how does he change the impact of a game? Because we've lost games by 4, by 2, by 2, by 7, and by 12. Is Cam worth 4 points? Because then that's 2 extra wins, and we're having a completely different conversation about the structure of this team. And so we can't retrospect that. I get that, but what I'm saying is, if at bare minimum we play the same way we've played, and we're able to be the team we were before, but with Cam, with those extra 2 to 4 points, we're looking at a better team. And so that's where my mindset is of all right, now that I've seen what we can do versus Oklahoma, which now that I've seen without Cam, Oklahoma's a loss. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah.
If we're now taking those games that should have been losses and they're now, or would have been losses and are now wins, that's where I'm at. Now, once again, we still have to prove it. We have to prove it out. We beat Oklahoma. Great.
Yeah.
I think in an ideal
by the way, you lose any of the next 3 games in the conversation.
We're done. We're not done, but the conversation's over then. And then you have to win. Then you have to like go beat UConn at XL to like really get back on that, which good luck. So I think what I'm getting at is I feel like we are headed in we're facing the right direction.
Yeah.
I don't know if we started moving yet.
Yeah.
The next 3 games are us moving.
I think your point is well taken. Like, is Cam, like if Cam is in the lineup for the games that we already played, we absolutely have picked up a couple more wins because he's worth for sure more than 4 incremental points a game based on everything else that he brings to the table. Right? He elevates everybody's ceiling for sure, without a doubt. The thing that I worry a little bit about too is like, yes, Cam is a huge playmaker. We still haven't solved this whole point guard thing. We've clearly established Caleb is not a point guard. Like that's been clear. It should be clear to everybody. We've also pretty clearly established like Arch is not a game-changing, lead a Final Four team type point guard. Is he going to win you some games? I don't think so. Like he's just there to, he's like the Trent Dilfer of point guards, basically. Like he's like as game manager as they come.
Yes.
And that worries me. That's why I think when it comes down to it, like if you don't have somebody who's able to really like control things and generate that offense and control that offense, when you get into this Big East play, I think that's really going to hurt you. So that's why I'm still like, my hope is like, it's just not there yet. I haven't seen it yet.
I think here's my take on the point guard situation real quick. The last game showed me something. I know you commented on the end of the game and who played at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the beginning of the game and saying Neptune started Mark Armstrong. Like just like inserted the guy into the starting lineup, right? Like, which is like a big step. So and he started him in the second half too.
Yeah.
So like I'm looking at that and saying, okay, there is at least a little bit of Neptune that's saying like, we're going to let this kid ride a little bit. And then if he feels like what he's not getting, this I think is what was going on in his head, maybe to tease that point out from earlier in the podcast a little bit more. I think if he feels like he's not getting what he needs from Armstrong yet, he will go back to the comfort, the security blanket, so to speak, of Chris Arcidiacono until obviously Justin Moore comes back, right? Like, so I agree with your point. I just think that there is a step. We're moving towards an Armstrong being a very big part of this rotation.
Yeah,
I think we're moving towards that.
And I think the only other thing I have to really add to this is we, like Rob, you mentioned that you said, we need a point guard to be a Final Four level. Is this a Final Four team right now?
No,
I don't think so. And so what I'm thinking about is, and I don't think so. They're not a Final Four team right now. But
Be clear.
let me just be very clear about that.
We don't need any takes on social media. You guys said they're nobody's saying that. Yeah.
Book your trips to Houston. No, basically
for a couple years now.
Yeah. What I'm thinking
for
about
a vacation, not for Run 4.
What I'm thinking about is we point guard is a deficiency point for us completely, but that's why this team is a 10 seed instead of a 5 seed. And that's I think that's the thing where there are plenty of tournament teams that get in and don't have the point guard situation figured out.
Yeah. My counter is though, we have to play based on how the numbers play out. We don't have to play Final Four level, but we've got to play better than just making a tournament level team for the rest of the season to make the tournament.
That's a very fair point. Yeah.
One thing that I'm doing on Twitter, I'm gonna continue to do it after every game, is I'm gonna continue.
Wait, you're on Twitter?
I know. I admit people don't know this, but I'm very much on Twitter.
I got a report from Elon. He's like, who's this Bellotti guy? He's like our number one Twitter Spaces user.
So the one thing I'll point out there is I am doing this little analysis here of record with Whitmore and Moore out, record with Whitmore in and Moore out, right? And I'm just teasing this out because I don't exactly know how the committee is going to look at the injury situation and how it's all going to go. But if Villanova for the last, I don't know how many games are left in the season, total number, I guess it's 23 in the regular season. If Villanova goes with Whitmore, forgetting Moore, even existing, if Villanova goes in those 20 games, 13 and not 13 and 10, that's a little bit too low, 15 and 8, right? With Cam Whitmore, and assume that there's some good wins in there and not terrible losses, whatever, just assume that out. Does the committee look at that and say, well, this is a team that is, playing, I don't know what the math is on that. It's roughly 67% ball, right? 65%, winning percentage there. Yeah. With that resume, does the team look at that? And does the committee look at that and say, this therefore is a tournament team? I don't know the exact. We'll try and get Lucas Harkins back on the podcast later in the season if it's worth it. But I don't know if they're going to go that route and they'll look at it that plainly, but they could segregate out chunks of the season to say, okay, well, this is the team with, as currently constructed entering the dance. I don't know how that's going to look. That's point one. Point two, really quick. If I told you that after playing Georgetown on Monday, January 16th, that's Martin Luther King Day. If I told you that the team was 13 and 6, would you think this team is making the NCAA tournament?
For 13
one
and
loss.
6, one loss.
Yes.
Yeah.
13 and 6. I don't know if you know the schedule or whatever, but that's
Yeah.
the record. Okay. That's what Ken Pom has us getting to on Monday, January 16th, right now. Now it's tight, but our schedule is, with the exception of the Connecticut away game, which is like a massive exception, our schedule up until Martin Luther King Day is actually pretty backloaded. So like we have a backloaded schedule in terms of difficulty. So like in that first window, we have St. John's, which is potential tournament team, Marquette potential tournament team, but at home. You go on the road, you have both Georgetown games,
Which
you have
is a dead program.
which is a dead program.
Sorry.
You have
100%. Yeah.
you have a couple of things that could get a little bit dicey. You have Xavier at home, but we're projected to win that game, tight, but projected to win that game. And you have DePaul and Butler away, which we're projected to win both. Again, could be a little bit tight because they're away games. But that's where Ken Pom, as of right now, has us at like 13-6 after the January 16th game. I'm not saying that it's all going to play out like that. Obviously, it doesn't work out like that's why we have to play the games. But there is a there in which like Villanova can get pretty hot, run the record to 13-6, and then there's a little bit of pressure off just because the numbers look pretty good, right?
Yeah,
like at 13-6, you're like, okay, in the last, however many games can I win 5 to Willie's point?
Totally. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, 13-6 like starts to be a respectable record for sure. Totally fair.
So that's the anatomy. I don't like. Look,
Yeah.
we're the number one goal for this week, and I think I'll parlay this into the next point.
Yeah.
The number one goal is to not lose to Penn, Boston College, and St. Joe's. Like you just can't lose those games.
I know you don't mean it like this when you say it, but I kind of feel like I want to see us win. Like I want to see us I'm not saying we're going to win by 30, but I want to see some like 12 to 15 point games where it's like, okay, we've started to figure it out. Like if we had 3 straight Delaware State games, even if we won, I would not be confident going into St. John's.
Right.
I want to see continual improvement. So yes, definitely not lose. And obviously we'll take a win in any way, shape, or form that it comes. But I kind of want to see us start to figure things out. If we win these games by like 10 to 12, or just like, even if it's 8, but it's like a pretty like, all right, well, we were pretty in charge for the whole game. Then I will definitely feel a little bit better about potentially that 13-6 coming real or coming alive. If we have a Delaware State game, and frankly, at any point during those, I'm going to be like, well, all right, well, we still got so much shit to figure out.
Yeah. When I say I'm not, when I say not lose, like these are can't lose games, like I just mean purely resume.
Yep.
Resume talking, right? Like that's just resume chatter.
Yeah.
From like a basketball perspective, my expectation for this team, if we are to be a team that can make the NCAA tournament, is we have to go out and throttle some of these guys, right? Like
totally.
Like, is it possible that younger team, whatever, like even as bad as they are, like goes out and maybe has like a rock fight versus St. Joe's where you get that 8-point win, like I think that's possible, like just because of whatever. Penn is at the Finn, right? Like BC is a neutral site home game, right? Like these two guys, like I want to see a blowout this week. I want to see a comfortable Villanova ho-hum yawner victory this week, like and maybe 2. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I think you start to wow people a little bit if Villanova can pull off a blowout this week.
Yeah. Should we talk about? You've alluded to this, like you kind of reference it by implicitly on the schedule. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the Big East is doing right now, or do you want to save that for later?
Yeah, we can talk Big East now. That's fine with me. Big East conference. So like this week and last week, like what a difference makes in terms of like conference and kind of like what the bid structure might look like, etc. A week ago, I would have told you this conference has really shit the bed, and we're like public enemy number 1 on that in the out of conference play. And then we got into this Big East Big 12 battle, which Big 12 is like the best conference, and everyone, and gets all deserved, by the way, plaudits for how good they are. And there's like 10 teams in that conference and like 8 or like NCAA tournament quality teams, like at minimum, right? So it's a super deep league. And I honestly thought that this could be like a 2-8, like in this 10-game challenge. Big East did 5-5. And some of those wins are pretty good. Like we talked about the Villanova over Oklahoma game. Xavier got the best of West Virginia, ran away with that game late.
Yep.
The big stamp on this one was Marquette absolutely like dog walking Baylor, which like no one does that.
Huge.
Like that's so crazy to watch. But just absolutely ran roughshod over them in that game in Wisconsin. I would say that beyond that, I would say like most of it else was like a little bit of hold serve. Like UConn blew the doors off of Oklahoma State. Like UConn kind of like lollygag through a lot of that game.
I was going to say, it didn't blow it out right out of the gate. Like
they kind of lollygag through a lot of that game, had a 10-minute stretch where they absolutely crushed them, and then the game was over. Like,
Creighton lost to Nebraska.
Texas.
Creighton lost to Texas in the challenge and then lost to Nebraska today. So Creighton had a really bad week.
Yeah.
The good news with Nebraska in particular is that St. John's beat them by 20. So the conference is going to get it's going to be a nothing burger for the conference, and Creighton's going to be good enough resume to get in the tournament.
I was going to say, don't read into too much. Creighton's still a very good team. Like they will most likely beat us.
Yeah, they just threw a dud up today. They shot 43s and we're like 25% from deep, or maybe worse.
Nice.
So
it's an interesting strategy.
So in terms of the conference, look, everyone's trying to tier out the conference. I'd say that the surprise, if you will, it's not like a big surprise, but the surprise is that UConn is, as we sit here today, the best team in the conference. And I'm not sure it's close. They have looked absolutely superb. They go about 10 deep. They somehow get bigger than Adama Sanogo when they go to a bench big man and Donovan Clingan. Joey Calcaterra off the bench is like a sniper. They just have guys. They have dudes everywhere on this team. They're super deep. Dan Hurley gets them running, and they're just one of these teams that's like, maybe a little bit way like an 18 Nova, where they could like hang with a team for a while and kind of just kind of go through the motions, and then they like turn it on, and then they have a 10-minute stretch where they just absolutely run you off the court. And you have no hope of getting back in the game. And I've seen them like do that like twice in a singular game. They did it with Alabama in the was it Alabama or was it Iowa State? I forget. In the PK85. They've just looked super good. They picked up a ton of good wins. They're up to number 4 in KenPom. That is like they're the cream of the crop right now. Creighton looks to be I think is the clear second best team. And I think, there's still that chance for them to be good, but they get it done in a different way. They're like they go like pretty much 5.5 deep. They are not a deep team. But they are loaded at every position in that starting lineup. Their starting 5 is the best starting 5 in the conference. They just have absolutely no depth. Or no quality depth of anything to write home about. So after Creighton, it really gets murky. I'd say Xavier, to me, has shown me that I think they're the third best team in the conference going in. And then there's just a heap of, I'll put us in there, Villanova, St. John's. I'm honestly going to put Marquette and Butler in there, only because I feel like Butler has been better than advertised this season. And I'm not sure I'm putting Providence in that upper tier. So I think Providence was the team that everyone thought, well, with Ed Cooley and whatever. I'm not seeing that team it's another team of a lot of transfers. I'm not seeing them gelling. And Jared Bynum has been straight up fucking terrible for them. Awful. Like he was a really good guard last season. And I don't know what the hell's going on with him so far this year. I feel like I'm missing another team in the middle of the conference, but
Seton Hall was the other one.
Seton Hall is hilarious. So Seton Hall, they have a new coach in Shaheen Holloway. He has literally said out loud in press conferences when being interviewed how much he can't understand how this team doesn't want to play basketball. Like he hates his team.
That's awkward.
He literally hates these guys.
Damn.
which is kind of an interesting thing because some of the guys came over with him from St. Peter's, and
super weird.
and he recruited, in theory, maybe some of the older guys, like way back when he was the assistant at Seton Hall. I think what he's doing is he wants to like set up a culture here. And I think what he's doing is basically like, if I have to throw these guys who aren't giving me a whole lot right now under the bus, I will, and buy myself an extra year or two to kind of get this program on the right footing. But I think what he's trying to do is build a culture. And I just don't think he's getting buy-in from the current set of players.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right. So Big East shaping up to be an interesting run.
Willie, any thoughts there?
I kind of like DePaul. Until proven otherwise, I can't vouch for them, but I think they're a pretty decent squad. But
It's another team that's been riddled with injury.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off, but like I have a little bit of DePaul stock. We'll see what happens.
Wow.
No,
I have Tony Stubblefield stock.
It's like a penny stock.
It's a penny stock. Yes.
It's like it goes up. It goes up. It's cool.
I have a Tony Stubblefield stock. I think he's the right fit for them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And his guys play for him. They go injury after injury after injury, and these guys are in every game. They just had a pretty good win against Loyola Chicago yesterday. So yeah, I agree with that take. Butler's another team with Thad Matta, I think has looked good.
I just forget how many good coaches there are in the league.
The league is insane.
And then Patrick Ewing.
And then there's Patrick Ewing.
Oh, Jesus. Wait, so the fun stat that I came across on the interwebs this week was that somebody from Georgetown transferred out or decided to transfer out, which means that from their recruiting classes in 2018, 2019, and 2020, every single player has transferred out, which is absolute insanity. Absolute insanity.
I can't imagine what the Georgetown message boards look like.
I go on
empty spaces.
I go on Casual Hoya every so often just to see, because it's like holy shit, like this is so bad. I kind of want to watch the train wreck, and it's really sad. Like it's just
they got to tear it down to the studs. The whole athletic department. It's bad at what's happening.
I think their administration just doesn't fucking get it. Like the fact that they still have Ewing is it indicates clearly they have no understanding of what they're doing. But anyways, Georgetown podcast. Fuck them.
I'm beyond fuck them at this point. I feel terrible.
I want them to be like, I want to hate them, and I can't, because it's just like,
I will say this: 5 years ago, I thought the conference absolutely needed Georgetown to be good, to be a good conference. That's not the case anymore. Like, whether it be because they're so bad that they've let other teams kind of come up, or UConn coming in and whatever, but like the conference doesn't need them. Like, which is really weird to say. Like 10 years ago, I would have been like, well, Georgetown and Villanova need to like carry this conference, and not the case at all.
Time check for you. 5 years ago was like 2018, 2017. So 5 years ago, we didn't need Georgetown to be good. 10 years ago, we needed Georgetown to be good.
Yeah.
Time flies.
I have a bit of a funny Georgetown interlude here. It's like semi-related, but okay. Date this weekend. And I know. I like left my house and actually like went out with another human being.
Wait, you had a date. This is a Rachel date story.
Like it's a bit of a date story, but like, we go to a restaurant. It was a really good place actually. But the best part was we sit down, we're like first date. Oh, like where'd you go to school? What do you do for a living? Blah, 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 whatever. And I talk about how I work in sports, and he's like, oh, like, well, what got you into that? And I was like, well, I went to Villanova. And he goes, oh. He's like, don't be mad. I went to Georgetown, so we're kind of rivals. And I just looked at him. And tried not to laugh.
Oh God, that's brutal. Did you keep a straight face?
Did he graduate in 85? Like maybe that's what it is.
Wait, no, honestly.
I was like, listen, maybe this is why I'm still single, but also like, for me, my guy.
Yeah. Wait. How did he take it? Because this is an important question. Because if this guy is any bit of a realist, he should be like, yeah, you're right. We're really not about it.
I looked at him and I kind of was like, I wouldn't call it a rivalry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I
That's
don't know
the right
about
point.
that.
The right point. Yeah, that's
Funny.
totally,
I was just
that's,
like,
that's
that
pretty
would
good.
be, that was like, he was like, oh, like rivals, right? And I was like,
He's like, please.
excuse me? Like, what?
Oh, that's brutal. Oh man.
Poor guy.
How the mighty have fallen. That's tough. Still holding on to 85.
It's tough.
80,
Man.
86.
I feel
Or
bad.
84.
They were in a Final Four 15 years ago, and this team cannot stop losing.
I know. It's rough.
All right.
Anyway, enough Georgetown.
So the Big East is shaping up to be, in my view, I feel like this conference, I'd set the over under at number of bids at, I'm trying to decide if I'm 4.5 or 5.5. I don't think I'm not sure this conference gets 6 teams in. I could see it happening if for no other reason other than the ACC is absolutely trash. The ACC is closer to the like Ken Palm rating wise is closer to the American Athletic Conference than they are the Big East. So
That's interesting.
it's ugly season in there, and they have their own version of Georgetown named Louisville. So that is that conference is rough. So the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC are going to absorb a ton of bids. I think that there could be a path where the Big East, I'm going to put it at 5.5 because it's about right down the center of the number of teams in the conference. I think a lot of people who are betting right now would bet the under on that and say that it could be even as low as 4. But I'm going to guess that there's going to be a little bit of math there in terms of you get 3 guarantees in my view. And then I feel like you get between Marquette, Villanova, St. John's, and a surprise team like a Butler. I think you're going to get another one in.
I think 5.5 is a good number for it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Fun fact, also dragging down the ACC numbers, Louisville lost again, running the record to 8-0 today. 0-8. Excuse me.
So from there, I'd say let's talk a little bit about the week to come, right? Did we hit everything? Did we?
Oh my gosh.
We didn't pick a Shaq fit.
We didn't pick it. Let's do awards.
Let's do awards.
Okay.
Is everyone in agreement that Alpha Dog is Caleb Daniels?
Yes.
No issue.
Pass the fucking ball award of the week is I don't think I have one.
Yeah, I don't really
Is it
have
possible to say we don't have a pass the fucking ball award a week? I mean, we beat Oklahoma by a little bit, but like
Everyone was adequate.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, some stands. I could nitpick and say like some of Cam's like his handle was a little loose, but I don't feel like nitpicking that much. So
Rob, you were literally just about to like go.
I said
Cam's
if I
house,
if
give
I
him
was gonna
flowers
nitpick,
and ask him to homecoming, and now you're like, pass the fucking ball.
be more than flowers, Rachel. But
maybe Jay gets the pass fucking.
I almost thought
does.
Jay.
Yeah.
But I was like, he didn't do anything
Yes.
wrong. But I was like,
No, he did. That quote. Oh, it's rare to
Yeah.
play for Villanova. That's it.
Jay.
That's it. That's 100% it.
I posted on Twitter, but that quote was literally like the guy in the hot dog suit.
Yeah.
We're all looking for the guy who did this.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Jay. All right, that's a good call.
And then the
Alpha Dog.
no, we did Alpha Dog. The Shaq Fit Man player.
Yeah.
So I nominated 2. I nominated Caleb's 3. I nominated Cam's drive. I think that there was maybe 1 or 2 other nominations, and with Slater and Dixon on defensive plays down the stretch.
I nominate Cam's step back 3 because I haven't seen a player do that in I don't know when, maybe ever for Villanova. Maybe like Alan Ray. Alan Ray.
I mean, Colin Gillespie did it like last year famously, right?
Not like that. No, I've never seen anyone do a step back 3 like that in Villanova.
it's a little bit different, but
Yeah, what are you talking about Colin? I don't remember this at all.
Providence.
The Providence game. It was a big 3. We gave it a Shaq Fit player.
There's a difference between a big 3. I gotta look this up now before I.
Brian has a
my words on
spreadsheet that will prove it.
No, I believe it, but it's like the way he took that step back 3 was just so dirty. All right, I got 3 points.
All right, so you've nominated this. Fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can have that nomination. Willie, where are you at?
I'm probably gonna vote for one of the ones you said, but I'm gonna nominate. I want to give flowers when their flowers are due. Chris Archer's 3 in the second half. just because it was actually a big three. It was actually like a big breathing room three that he hit, and he took a confident one. So I'm going to give him that. I'm not going to vote for it, but if I'm going to nominate something, I'll do that one.
It was very reminiscent of the three that he hit versus Hall last year.
I was thinking it every time he shot. I was like, Seton Hall, maybe.
Okay, but which one is it? I'm really torn here. I feel like I'm going to go with the Whitmore drive, only because I think that was like in the spirit of the Shaq fitness. I feel like that's more in the spirit of it. Like he was Shaq fit in that play. Like everything about his physicality and everything that he did to get that layup in was enormous. Now it's not the clutchest play of the game, which was Caleb's shot, but like that was so Shaq fit, that play.
I would say that too. I mean, that was the balance, or that was the combination of balance, power, speed, finesse, footwork. That was just strength. That was just that, like you said, that's what Shaq fit is. So I would say that play is mine.
All right, Rob is like
I'm watching the call-in three, so I can decide.
It wasn't
It wasn't even a step back. Oh my gosh! Stop! Oh, this is so.
He came off a screen.
Stop it! And for that reason alone, my vote goes to Cam Whitmore's step back 3-pointer. Proves my own point.
All right, you know what? I feel good about the fact that all three of us picked the Cam Whitmore, because this was like in a way the Cam Whitmore game. So
yeah, 100%.
I feel like that's a good acknowledgement to him.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so next week we're playing Penn. They were projected to finish towards the top of the Ivy League. Willie, any key notes that you want to go through?
Yeah, Penn, two main players. Jordan Dingle, who we should be very familiar with. He's going to be annoying. He's going to give us trouble, but Dingle's taken a leap. He's averaging like 24 points and on like pretty good efficiency. They have another guy, I cannot say his name, Clark Schlager, who is, I believe, a transfer. I might be making that up. But regardless, he's taken a leap too, and he's averaging about 18. Both are undersized. We are stronger, quicker, faster than them. Should be a game that, in theory, we win on paper, but we've seen that happen already. So, or we've seen a lot happen there already. But big Jordan Dingle game. Overall, I think if we can shut down Dingle, we'll be fine. I'm excited to see I'm excited to potentially open up the lineup a bit and just get more players into the rotation. This is a game where I feel like we have more latitude to kind of go against what I said earlier, but we have more latitude to kind of give the Trey, Angelo, Nana, let's put them in for a couple minutes, and then if it's really going bad, whatever, we'll just go to our 8 and then we stick with it. But yeah, Penn, I got nothing more to say than Jordan Dingle and Clark.
This is a game where we have to eat on the boards. This team, our team has not been great on the glass this year. Cam Whitmore's back. We're taller, we're bigger, we're more athletic. We had to eat on the glass. It's at the Pavilion. If this was at the Palestra, I might say I'm a little nervy about this game. I'm not. We're gonna blow them out.
Minute restrictions dependent. Cam goes for 20 in this game.
Jesus. Rob's a big believer.
We're laughing, and then he's going to drop 40.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no one on Penn who's
Exactly, yeah.
I don't even know who the fuck Jordan Dingle is, but
that's a fair point.
Jordan Dingle wishes he's half of Cam Whitmore.
It honestly is a fair point. After their center who's 6'9", there's not a single guy who's taller than Whitmore, and certainly not a guy who can get up like Whitmore anywhere close to the Penn roster. So this is we got to overwhelm them with talent, speed, athleticism in this game. I agree. Like to see a lot more Armstrong. This is the opportunity, these next 3 games, starting with Penn at home, to really get the freshmen burning and get their confidence boosted. And I like this game to start it. And I'm predicting a 80-60 game today for this Penn game. That's my score prediction. 80-60.
That'd be great.
I like it.
You could go anywhere direction you want, really. You could.
So well then I guess I mean 80 to 60. That's cool with that. I think we can move on to BC. Just because I think that's the last game of the week.
Yep.
So BC's a pretty deep team in terms of like having bodies to throw out. Skill level, they're skilled, but it's BC. They are led by senior guard Makai Ashton Langford. Wait, what's that name? You remember that name? Makai Ashton Langford you remember him at Providence. He's been at BC for a bit, more or less plays the exact same way. Could get hot and become like pretty annoying, but isn't very efficient. He's shooting this year, he's shooting like 16% from three. Of course, he will probably hit 5 threes versus us because that's just the way life goes. They have his brother, DeMar Langford, who's just kind of a role player, but it's interesting that they have brothers on the team. I always like when I see that. And then overall, what they have is like they're a pretty like long-ish team. They're very switchable in theory. They have a bunch of 6'5", 6'7" people. Their big man, TJ Bickerstaff, who I'm trying to figure out, I'm pretty sure that's Bernie's kid. It might not be, but regardless, he's a senior as well. Been playing. He's probably been my favorite player I've seen when I've watched him play. Really strong on the glass. Makes a lot of defensive plays. But he's also 6'9", and he's Dixon's Dixon. I think Dixon will be able to win that battle. I think the BC game is a game where we go to Dixon quickly and early. You get Bickerstaff in foul trouble, and then there's like freshmen and then people who can't match up with Dixon. I feel like BC might be a game where we're a little bit like, all right, what's going on? Like they're sort of hanging around. We're not playing well. Dixon comes in, we take over. That should be I think BC will give us a strong punch, but it should be a home, like a pseudo home game at the Prudential Center. I'm imagining the Villanova Alumni Network of New York is just going to take whatever the train's called. Is it called the Path?
They have the Path. You get there versus the Path, the Gen J Transit. There's a number of different ways to get there.
So I'm imagining we'll show up in droves, and it should be pretty good. If I'm giving a prediction for that, I'll give it like 74-58 kind of situation where it's like just ugly for a bit, because I'm just going to bet on us playing ugly versus BC, and then we kind of just pull it away late. Maybe it's 74-62, but that's what my prediction is. BC's got a lot of stuff to figure out, but I think Earl Grant might be the guy to do it, but we'll see what happens with Boston College.
They have an all-name team guy on this. I don't know if they even play, but they have a guy named Armani Mighty. Armani Mighty. That's a fantastic name.
Oh, and I'm doing a disservice.
Sounds like you in high school, buddy.
I'm doing a disservice to this guy. Jaden Zachary is one of their other guards who's been pretty good, and it's honestly probably been their best and most efficient player, which isn't saying a lot, but I should give him a shout out because he's a young player who I think if they can keep him there, it should be a good part of their future going forward.
He shot like 48% from three last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he can shoot. Look, I tend to agree. I agree on it. It's going to be a game where we're going to feel a little uncomfortable in our seats early. I do see this as a pull-out game.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the game, maybe like with free throws, the game goes from like 8 to like 11. So I'm kind of with you on like the margin of victory, close enough. I'm going to give them a little bit more points because our defense.
I want the Ken Palm defense. I'm trying to manifest it. I'm trying to manifest a better Ken Palm defense.
Yeah, I appreciate that. 66, 75. So a 9-point difference, but with free throws kind of expanding it down the stretch and it not really feeling like we're going to lose in the last couple minutes.
Interesting. Always a question of how strong your pullout game is. Now, for me, I think I'm going to go a little bit tighter. On both of these games.
Pull-out game tighter, like Jesus.
Game's a little tighter.
Oh boy.
There's a reason I'm on this podcast. I'm gonna go a little tighter on both these games, but I think we'll pull out the win and go 2-0.
Yeah. So Rob, you're the pessimist eternally.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Eternal pessimist, especially relative to us on the podcast.
Yeah.
I do have to call you out before we finish up today's pod. I do have to call you out. Little bit of a dose of accountability.
Hmm.
Willie said prior to the PK 85 that he wanted every bit of North Carolina
Hmm.
because he did not buy in.
Yes, this is true. This is
He
true.
did
Yes.
not buy in. He said they
Yes.
looked like ass. And I gotta say, there's another team with a 4-game losing streak who was in the Final Four last year,
Yes.
and that team is North Carolina, and they
Yeah.
will not be ranked on Monday. So
Yes.
they've gone from number 1 to not ranked.
Yes,
So
and I very much took the opposite stance on that and said, you got to give them some credit. They're number 1 and they made the finals. So yes, I was absolutely wrong on that one. And hopefully I'll be wrong on more of my predictions this season as I've been, as we said, the pessimist of this group.
So it's going to be hilarious because I'm going to slightly defend North Carolina.
No,
even though
we don't do nuance on this podcast. Really, no nuance.
It's just been all high major teams. So like, I don't know. They're going to face high major teams, but I just think it's interesting.
look, they're going to do what they always do, or not what they always do. This particular edition of North Carolina does, which is not give a flying fuck for most of the year, and then turn it on when they need to turn it on and figure it out and get it done and be in the tournament.
Yep.
Like last year's team was hot ass for most of the season. Then they beat Coach K at Cameron Indoor to end to finish the regular season, get in as, what were they, 9 seed? What seed were they? 8, 9 seed, and then run to the final game, and we're up big at halftime. So when they care, they're really good.
That team's hilarious because it's a team I saw. They're 8 seed. I think I watched play like 5 times during that season because I saw them in Connecticut. So they played Purdue and Tennessee. I went and saw them play BC, and then I was in the Final Four. And every game, it was just baffling that I was like, this team doesn't feel good, but it's just like continuing to win. And then they got white hot, and then Caleb Love. It's just a whole funny thing. But it was weird. I think I watched UNC play more last year than I did watch Villanova play, like live in person, which I think is interesting.
In person. Gotcha.
In person, yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's it. That's a wrap.
That's it.
So we'll be back after the BC game, and we'll preview then. I think it's just one game. We'll preview the St. Joe's, the Holy War game there, and then we'll be back after that to talk St. John's and Big East, and we're hunting for an interview for that. We'll see how it goes. All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and as always, let's go Nova.